Hey everyone.
Hello.
What's up, everyone? How we doing?
Hey, Hunter, doing well.
Yeah, doing well.
Hey.
How we doing, Scott?
All right. Maria will be here in a moment.
Nice. Okay, so yeah, it looks like we'll have all the TSC members and then a couple other people as well. I see in the meeting notes, we have a couple of items, which is good. Two of the items have MCF in brackets, and I wasn't sure who was planning on presenting for those two. Is that one of your topics, Emily, or was that something that you added, Scott?
Yeah, so I've added these actually just as a way to introduce Kendall. So what we've been talking about is sort of rebooting the operations and administration of this meeting. So Kendall from the MCF team moving forward, starting at the 221 TSC, is going to be leading a lot of the agenda items, the voting, sort of tracking oversight of some of the grant proposals, as well as sort of what's happening with the community roadmap.
Nice.
TSC is formed to do that. So over to you, Kendall. Just wanted to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself here.
Yeah, hi. I assume most of y'all probably already know me. I've been around the Magma community for a couple years now. So yeah, we'll be here to help with all of your operational needs.
All right, awesome. So let's see. Emily, is that it for the operational reboot, or was that just an intro?
Yeah, so I think that's sort of it on the operations side. I think what we've been discussing too is how we can go about electing code owners and getting more representation across the TSC. So I think this is a topic that we'll cover at the 221 meeting. But the goal is to have more TSC members from some of our key contributors and developer partners within MCF.
Great, sounds good. Okay, so for that then, I'd say we can pause here, and if there's anything else that we want to talk about, like MCF or TSC specific, and then we can head over to, I believe Alex has a couple of like intros for a couple of items that people want to present. So yeah,
yes, Hunter, sorry for interrupting on that. I already sent the message to Arseny and the invite for Freedom Fight for the presentation. I think they're about to join, but yeah.
Cool. So yeah, any general topics, and then otherwise we can briefly chat about the code owner vote process. I see that we don't have a doc yet, but still have some thoughts.
So, getting a little bit of clarity on the TSC, Emily, Kendall, Scott, what's the I know we've been discussing about new members and new folks joining. What's the timeline around that, and what's the plan for transition?
Yeah, good question, Trudy. So I think initially we wanted to bring some of our key developer partners to this meeting and nominate them as co-owners, but I think there's a little bit more work to make sure that everybody is up to speed and which sections of the repo they're supposed to be owning and approving. We've been talking about having sort of partnership managers and TLs sort of reaching out to them over the next 2 weeks, and then hosting sort of the election of new TSC members on the 21st of February.
Sounds good.
I think the other thing that we want to do on the 21st, so you'll see, I think Arseny and the Freedom Fi team are planning to present a few different grants today. I think we also want to cover sort of what the requirements are and what this process looks like. So the charter is already published on GitHub. It's github.com/magma/grants. As well as the application template, but we want to cover a little bit more of the philosophy of this program, and then generally sort of what we expect from these proposals and how the workshop process will go. So yeah, Hunter, I can add both of those to the agenda, but I think moving forward, sort of Kendall will be running some of the operations of this meeting. Hopefully we'll bring in some new co-owners from the community who have been making substantial contributions. And then we can cover sort of generally what we hope for in grant applications and how that process will look.
Perfect, sounds good.
Sounds good.
Well, I figure we can give Freedom Fi a couple of minutes and see if they can make it with the presentations for today on the grant presentations. And if not, we can defer to the next sync.
Well, maybe in the meantime, while we have everyone's attention, I can talk a little bit about the grant program at a high level and how we're thinking about this. So I think the purpose here is that the Magma Core Foundation grant would act almost like a Kickstarter program, where we're looking to understand how the product or the feature or project being proposed is going to kickstart a Magma distro or commercial business. So we're trying to understand how is this feature impactful to the community, what is sort of the revenue potential and the business justification for doing this. And then TSC here will be reviewing sort of the technical architecture. So what is being proposed? Is this reasonable within the allotted time frame? And then sort of the scope of work. So for each milestone, how many people will be working on this? What can be done in a specific time frame for a specific cost? And does this seem like both the right direction for Magma as a project? Is this a valuable part of the GitHub repo? Can this actually be built? So these are sort of the criteria that we're looking for. I think Freedom Fi is piloting this process or pioneering it for us today. So we'll get a good sense of what the grant applications look like and how we can workshop these and have something that's truly impactful for the community.
I have a question about this, and I think that I kind of phrased it the other day. How can we differentiate between a feature that it's good for the whole community and a feature that it's good for a specific vendor or a specific group that it's requesting for this grant? Because sometimes the feature may be really good for them, but not for the rest of the community. I mean, do we have to keep an eye of, okay, this feature is gonna also improve everybody's, or it's fine if it's not improving everybody's and just a specific, really specific team? So how much specific do we have to be when we, yeah.
That's a good question. So I think we're going to do a lot of these reviews on a case-by-case basis. Maybe I can show you guys what we're looking at, what we've recently presented to the governing board. Can you all see my screen? Yeah?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Yep. I can describe the process in a little more detail, and we're still waiting official governing board approval, but I think this will be helpful for sort of framing the discussion. So sort of the philosophy here is that we're starting almost this Kickstarter program, and we're looking for, Oriol, to your question, is sort of sustainable Magma powered businesses. And we're using this sort of as the criteria for assigning both funding as well as sort of DevRel or code owner support, and trying to make this process as transparent to the community as possible through both TSC and TAC reviews. So you'll see in the application template that's posted, of course, the core features is that you have to be able to contribute this back to the community and license it openly so that it's useful for everyone. And I think this is sort of your question, which is, we need to do an analysis of how many companies and businesses and products would actually use this feature. I think if an applicant can prove that there is indeed a use case here, then it will be sort of helpful to get sort of a TAM or a size of that business.
Okay.
As we talked about, the goal is to see what is the overview of the tech stack, sort of architecture, mock-ups of any UI or hardware testing with very specific milestones showing the capability as well as things like the test plan, public documentation. What we're looking for on the TSC is both the proposal itself as well as sort of who is the team, like can the team actually build this? Is this design viable? What are the KPIs, the way we're going to measure this? And then to your question, is there any conflict of interest with other MCF managers?
Exactly.
Yeah, are the costs reasonable? So this is helpful process that we're going through in both the TSC as well as the Technical Advisory Council. Is TSC, I think, is just evaluating both the application and the grantee and making sure that this is something that makes sense. And then the stage of the TAC is kind of how we prioritize and stack rank these proposals against each other. Then there's a final stage, which is the governing board approval. So essentially, someone submits a proposal. We all see this on GitHub. It's entirely transparent. Here in TSC, we review together sort of what are the milestones, the work effort, timelines, and try to workshop this proposal with the grant applicant. Then it eventually goes to the TAC and the governing board for final approval.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Awesome. So is Arseny back on?
Okay, so it looks I reprint again on Freedom 5. Arsenic hasn't responded and came back to me. I was talking with Amar. I think he's gonna join and also Joey, just to present the proposals there, because I didn't receive any response from Arsenic from his side. So
awesome. Well, thanks to Freedom 5, and I know Shoelace came and presented back in the December TAC. So a few companies have been pioneering the new grant process. I'll also publish these slides on GitHub so that anyone who wants to see them can better understand the process and the criteria, sort of what we're looking for from the new MCF grant program.
looks like Amar joined. Sure.
Hey, sorry, everybody. I'm here to stall, actually. I don't have the latest on the design, but I'll just ping, I just ping Joey and Arseny. I haven't heard back from them. Okay, so while we wait, so I'm just trying to understand what is the current status for the GTP tunnel creation moving to pipeline D. Is that something that you guys are okay with, or?
So is that a blocker for this work, or it's just nice to have?
No. So the thing that we're trying to do is, at least for the outbound roaming, right? Not for the inbound roaming. So for the outbound roaming, we don't want to run the MME, right? So we want the tunnel creation to be something that happens through session D itself. And so if the code path for the pipeline D is ironed out enough, then we'll just leverage that. Because otherwise we were planning to anyway implement that.
The problem, Amar, the problem is everything goes through MME right now. So
for inbound roaming, right?
Yeah. The TID, all the TID. So as I mentioned on the chat or on the PR or on the issue that you guys have there, the MME is the one that receives the TIDs from GTP from P gateway and puts it on OBS. If you don't create the GTP session, you don't have the TIDs, so the session on OBS cannot be created because you don't have TIDs, right? So the TIDs are needed, are required. That's why you need to create by design, not by design, but by the protocol. You need to ask the remote P gateway for TIDs first, and then follow the code flow that I showed on that issue. Because otherwise you don't have the information, right? So you cannot have the session D create this because you don't have the information yet ready.
Yeah. So this is for, so what you're describing is for inbound roaming. I'm with you 100%, where the P gateway is the remote side.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, this is for inbound roaming. And
what we are trying to do is for outbound roaming. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, for outbound roaming, but that's not the scope of this. I mean, that's not the scope of this issue, right? That was, I mean, I haven't seen anything about outbound roaming in that proposal. It was just inbound roaming, right? Maybe I'm mistaken.
Yeah. Okay, so there are 3 proposals out. So there's the GTP aggregator, there's the settlement service, and then we're also trying to figure out outbound roaming for Viasat. So I think the wires are crossing in that thread.
So in case of outbound roaming, the access gateway acts as a P gateway.
No, the GTP aggregator will act as a P gateway.
But on access gateway side, somebody has to still receive the P gateway signaling, right? Or
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I haven't checked outbound roaming because I didn't even know that we were going to talk about that. But what I checked in the past, you still need the the TIDs. I mean, the TIDs are basic because there is no other identifier that the P gateway sends to you. So there is no session IDs, there is nothing else. So TIDs is what we use in our system. Unfortunately, is what the only information that we can use to identify that tunnel with that subscriber, and that's stored on the MME. So that's for inbound roaming. For outbound roaming, I guess it's the same because the P gateway has to do a request to you, to us, to Magma, sending us a TID, right? And this TID has to be installed, and we have to send the P gateway a TID too, right? But I mean, I'm doing kind of like science fiction here because I didn't even know that it was outbound roaming. So what I could do here is first fix inbound roaming to add it, or do a proposal for inbound roaming to add session D in the call flow that we have. That it's not going to be simple. And we can break a lot of things. As I mentioned, if you change the call flow order, for sure, it's going to break something, for sure. I could do that. I could do a proposal for that, do a call flow. As I mentioned, the call flows are really important in that case. And then on top of that, we can see the other one, the outbound roaming, and then start to play with it. But I think we're mixing all the call flows, and it's difficult for us.
No, I was talking more about outbound roaming because that's what I'm looking at right now. So I think the main difference between inbound roaming and outbound roaming is in the outbound roaming case, we are the P gateway. So we do the TEID allocation, right? So that is something that we are going to allocate we'll figure out whether we allocate it at the orchestrator or at the GTP aggregator.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because
we're seen as a one. But remember that. And sorry to stop you. We had the same issue with outbound roaming, where Magma is seen to the P gateway, to the other system. We are seen as a one P gateway as a gateway. So we had to centralize that. So you have to give the probably TID from the orchestrator. Probably. So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No. So the question I had in that thread with Praveen, is that API is good enough for pipeline D API good enough that we can just use that for because then if we do the tunnel ID allocation on our side, wherever, like orchestrator, wherever it is, right? Then we don't even need the MME to create the tunnel for the outbound tunnel.
Yeah, so at this point, it's not sufficient because it's not complete yet. Because we are not really creating those the GTP devices in pipeline D. We are still dependent on the MME. I just looked at the code actually. So we'll probably will need some more work on that side. But if you're just asking about API, yeah, the API is good enough for you to create the flows, and it will pick up the packet from the generic GTP device that we have. So it should work in the usual case, but it might fail in some specific case.
And what is the reason of moving? I mean, why in outbound roaming don't we want to use the MME, even that we can skip it and so on, but why don't we want to use the same call flow that we have just for outbound roaming and inbound roaming both using the MME? What's the point of moving this to session D if we can use the same logic that we already have on MME? And besides that, we still have to manage the UE, right? So MME has to be some kind of involved there. I mean, I'm saying I don't even know how
so outbound roaming, the UE is in the the partners.
So it's okay. So it's the MME on the other side.
MME right? Is not on our side. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I think
hey guys, let me
question.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Aswin.
I was going to say this seems very focused on the details. Perhaps we can offline some of this and continue on.
Yes.
Yeah. No, as in we were trying to do this offline, and I think we crossed wires. And so
my advice is to, as I mentioned, divide it into 2 or now it's 3 proposals. One is for the inbound roaming inclusion, so adding session D on inbound roaming, which we don't have right now. The second one would be adding all the minor stuff. I don't know what name you want to use, but all the mining and all the extra services that are out of Magma scope right now. And then the third one, it could be outbound roaming. And what I could do is I could do inbound and outbound first, and then all the mining stuff later. Even that, I understand that for you guys, it's more important, but that's gonna give kind of like more organization, especially in the call flows. After we have like the 3GPP call flows sorted out, maybe we can start adding the mining stuff there, which is gonna be easier to add because you are not gonna break anything on the protocol. But if we break something on the protocol between the services, it's gonna be really difficult to find out and to fix. So to me, it could be like those 3 first inbound, then outbound, and then all the mining stuff.
Hey guys, to Aswin's point, I think given that the Freedom 5 people who would be presenting haven't made it, I think I'm okay with taking the design chats offline, and then we can just cut this early unless anyone has other topics that they'd like to bring up.
Sounds good. I just tried to stall for 10 minutes, but hopefully Arsene is joining because he said he's joining. So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's just cut it there then. And we in 2 weeks' time we'll have also a big chunk of that meeting will be, as Emily mentioned, part of the retool conversation. So I think that would be a good time to present anyway. So
okay, sounds good. So one thing that I had, which might be pertinent, and I think I asked you this, Hunter, on the other thread also, is what's the right way to coordinate these grant proposals with the TAC? Like, some of these proposals that are there with like, trying to generalize the UPF, right? It's like a little bit like, man, we're not doing that, right? So I just want to make sure that, we're never going to be a generic 3GPP box, and that shouldn't be a place where we're trying to compete. So just making sure we're all aligned on like not sending grants beyond a point that don't make sense to us.
Yeah, I think it could. My thoughts there are two. One, it probably makes sense to have a generic grants channel where anyone who's interested can join. And then for particular grants that maybe warrant like larger scale, longer term discussion, what we've been doing so far in the Slack is having like project scoped channels. So like a particular project dash, whatever it is, that then gets used for a month or two at minimum. So I think for larger scale conversations, longer term around grants, particular grants, it could be productive to start a channel in the Slack that's like grant dash UPF discussion or something like that, and throw everyone in, throw the relevant people in and have a discussion that way. Yeah, what do you think? Because I would say the default would be on the grant, on the GitHub issue, but sometimes conversations I know can be a little bit, especially if it's quick discussions or you want to have some nuance, can be difficult on GitHub compared to Slack. So thoughts on that, Amar?
Sounds good. Just mechanically, I would suggest we have like a sign-off process from both the...
Yeah. So Amar, we covered this briefly at the beginning of the meeting, and we'll cover it in more detail on the 21st TSC. But sort of at a high level, we've introduced a new application template and set of criteria that we're using both for the proposals as well as the grantees. And the process is sort of, there's this first step of reviewing the business and the technical architecture. Then there's the TSC review of the proposal somewhat independently. Then there's the technical advisory council review and sort of stack rank prioritization of all the pending proposals at the end of the quarter before the MCF governing board approves. So I think there's going to be sort of a process flow where we look at each of the proposals based on their own architectural and technical merit and the milestones that have been proposed, as well as sort of what drives the community forward and what has the biggest business implications as well.
Awesome.
So I'll post that on GitHub, and then we've reviewed it really briefly in the first 15 minutes of this meeting. So I think it'll be on YouTube, and then we'll cover it again on the 21st when we open up some of the proposals and presentations.
Yeah, sorry I joined late. Yeah, no, thanks for that. Yeah, I'm just trying to prevent like things which I think are wrong. That's yeah, so this is good, thanks.
Yeah, I think we're trying to do a lot of sort of, there's 3 goals. One is sort of kickstarting proposals that really help create commercial sustainability and traction in the community. 2 is sort of assigning DevRel resources for onboarding and oversight of the proposals. And then 3rd is to do this all in a really transparent way, so that all the proposals are in GitHub, or to Andrew's point, maybe with a Slack channel. There's sort of this formal TSC review where we're actually documenting and addressing sort of the proposal itself and going back and workshopping any open points. And then there's the TSC and governing board prioritization and approval based on what really drives impact in the community.
Sounds good. Yep, we can follow up on the specifics. Thanks.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, Shaw. Let's cut it there then, and then we'll have some good stuff for 2 weeks from now. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks all.